Why the hell is the CEO's coffee machine hissing like the devil's humidifier once more? I grumbled, crawling behind the computer rack with a flashlight clenched in my teeth and a 2-day-old banana stuffed in my pocket. That cursed machine was connected to the same circuit breaker as the air conditioning for the East Wing. Something I only discovered after the great latte-induced blackout of 2011. Nobody ever recorded that incident. Naturally, nobody except me ever documented anything in this place. But I remembered because I recall everything. That morning had begun like every other for the past 21 years. Me, Miranda Jean Hawkins, opening the office door at 6:47 a.m., 23 minutes before official hours with the original brass key they handed me in 2002. I'd lubricate it twice yearly. You'd be amazed how many executives can't turn a key if the lock squeaks. They assume it's damaged like their common sense. The janitorial crew had left gum in the basin again. Someone from product mistakenly left sushi in the mini refrigerator over the weekend. The kombucha had exploded. Not my responsibility technically, not in any agreement. But guess who scraped seaweed off a smart refrigerator with a laminated calendar and a plastic spatula? This woman. Some days I felt like the human equivalent of duct tape. I held everything together in complete silence. Used exactly the same way, only noticed when something failed. The CEO believed I was still reception despite my business card saying facilities and operations manager. And my inbox contained 3,200 unread urgent emails from people who couldn't replace a toner cartridge to save their encrypted lives. It worsened when they hired that new HR director, Haley. Fresh from graduate school, all smiles and trends. She once questioned me where the Ethernet cable went. I told her in the wall, "Sweetheart, same place your job performance is heading." She didn't chuckle. Now, I'm no TikTok expert, but apparently 97% of people listening to these stories don't subscribe. That's like arriving at a potluck empty-handed and still departing with Tupperware. So, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Keeps the electricity on and the petty revenge flowing. Back to the chaos. I didn't attend fancy universities. Didn't wear jackets that cost more than my truck. But I understood that building. Not like a property manager understands it. No, I knew it like you know an old dog. Which pipes groaned when it was going to rain. Which thermostat panicked when the humidity reached 70%. Where the fuse box creaked like a haunted dollhouse if you opened it too quickly. I'd kept that company breathing through power fluctuations, toilet floods, and 3 CEOs worth of poor decisions. And they simply forgot. No acknowledgement, no bonus, no handwritten notes from the board. Just once when I stayed late to personally unclog the women's restroom after someone dropped a badge in it. Don't ask. The old VP of finance gave me a half-eaten protein bar and said, "You're a saint, Marcy." My name is Miranda. At some point, I stopped correcting them. I wasn't attempting to be the hero. I simply believed in doing things correctly. That lease, the one that allowed us to occupy prime downtown real estate for 1/10 of the current market rate. I negotiated that back when we couldn't even get a landlord to return a phone call. Company had 5 employees and a fax machine held together with chewing gum. The founder asked me if I'd co-sign. Hell, I just put the entire lease under my name. Nobody else had the credit back then. I didn't mind. They were like family. Like most families, they eventually forgot who kept the lights on. You ever enter a room you've spent decades managing and suddenly realize no one notices you unless the printer jams or there's a mouse in the break room? That was me. Invisible until things hit the fan. Then suddenly I was everybody's grandmother and janitor rolled into one. God forbid the AC stopped functioning. Then I was Queen Miranda, savior of sweat. So yeah, I kept showing up quiet, competent, unshakable like furniture. Then came that Monday. HR sent an all-staff email announcing strategic realignment opportunities, which in HR speak is like a mafia boss saying, "Take a ride with us." My stomach went cold. I'd witnessed enough CEOs cry into lattes during layoffs to know what was coming. I was next. And I wasn't going to weep. I'd already started remembering things they forgot they owed me. And this time, I wasn't going to clean up their mess. The invitation came at 4:58 p.m. just as I was scraping a dried burrito off the copper glass. Subject line: Quick Sync HR. No context, no warning, just a calendar event dropped onto my day like a turd in a punch bowl. I walked in the next morning, punctual as always, wearing my grey cardigan with the hole in the elbow and a stain shaped like Delaware. The cardigan had witnessed 3 CEOs, 1 office fire, and a surprise baby shower that ended in divorce. It was my armor. Haley from HR was already seated in conference room B. She smiled like a stepmother from a Lifetime movie. Next to her, some guy from legal I'd never encountered before. Slick hair, slicker shoes, and a folder he wouldn't stop stroking like it contained the cure for cancer inside. "Miranda, thanks for coming in," Haley chirped. "We wanted to have a little restructuring conversation." That word, restructuring, hit harder than a sack of hammers. I'd translated it for others. Held their hands, covered their shifts. I knew the rhythm by heart. First came the smile, then the folder, then the apology that wasn't really an apology. "We're going in a new direction," she said. I stared at her. "That direction wouldn't happen to include me in it, huh?" Silence. Then a gentle push of the folder across the table. Inside, a generic severance package with more red tape than a Christmas crime scene. 3 months' pay. NDA clause. Health insurance until the end of the month. How generous. The letter didn't even get my title right. Called me Miranda J. Hawkins. 21 years and they still couldn't spell my name. "We're asking for your badge and keys today," the lawyer added in monotone. "Also, any company property in your possession." I took a breath that could have cracked drywall, and I reached into my bag and set the badge on the table like a poker chip. Next, the keys. All 11 of them labeled in my handwriting from 2002, back when I used to stay late to reprogram the door locks myself. "You sure?" I asked, eyes locked on Haley. She blinked. "Sorry. You sure you want these? Last chance." She gave me that HR face. Sympathetic, bland, fake as margarine. "It's not personal." "Sure it ain't," I muttered, standing. "Just remember, you can't fire what you never understood." I walked out before I could burn the place down with my stare. The sun felt sharp on my skin. The sidewalk buzzed with noise, but I was numb. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. Not after 21 years of cleaning their messes, fixing their machines, calming their interns during panic attacks. They wanted to forget me. Fine, but they forgot too much. I didn't drive straight home. I pulled into a Dunkin' lot, sat in the car with the engine off, and called Lenny. Lenny was my old neighbor's son. Grew up mowing my lawn. Now he's a real estate lawyer with a Bluetooth headset permanently attached to his head and a nervous twitch when people say, arbitration. He picked up on the second ring. "Miranda, everything okay?" "No," I said. "But it's about to be. You remember that lease we drew up in '02? A pause, then a low whistle. "Oh," he said. "That lease. Yep. Do they know?" I smiled for the first time that day. Not a warm smile, a dangerous one. "They just asked for the keys," I said. "So I think it's time I gave them everything they asked for." My house smelled like lemon pledge and old war movies. My way of staying sane. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and walked straight to the hallway closet where I kept the "in case they try something stupid" file. Never thought I'd actually open it. But here we were. Folder was hot pink, labeled in Sharpie, lease 2002, Miranda only. I pulled it out with the same care you'd use for disarming a bomb. Inside, original lease agreement, 7 amendments, a receipt for the rug I bought for the lobby before we could afford furniture, and 3 post-it notes with doodles from the founder's kid back when the office was a single room above a Thai takeout joint. 21 years ago, they couldn't get a lease if their lives depended on it. No credit, no revenue, one laptop and a fax line that made a sound like a dying raccoon. The founder, Randy, sat across from me at Denny's and said, "Miranda, if you don't co-sign, we'll be working out of my garage. My wife will kill me." I didn't co-sign. I signed the whole damn thing myself. "Just until we get on our feet," he said. We never had that conversation again because after that it was always me who renewed the lease. Me who dealt with the property manager, me who coordinated the HVAC installs, the carpet replacement, the weird smell in Suite B that turned out to be a dead squirrel inside the insulation. They never took my name off the lease, never even asked. I sat at my kitchen table, cracked open a Diet Dr. Pepper, and started reading like my dignity was buried somewhere in that fine print. Page 12, Section 9b. Renewal of lease terms shall require written notice from the lessee no later than 30 days prior to expiration. I blinked. Read it again. Then I checked the expiration date. August 1st. Today was August 3rd. 2 days too late. They hadn't renewed. Hadn't even emailed. Not a peep from legal. Not a word from Haley. Not a single panic call about zoning or rental terms. They were so busy patting each other on the back and playing musical chairs with titles that they missed the most important deadline in the company's physical existence. I sat back in my chair. A long, slow grin crawled across my face. The kind of smile you wear when you realize the universe just handed you the keys to the kingdom. It wasn't just that they fired me. It was how they fired me. Like a smudge on a window. Like I was just some disposable middle-aged woman with a binder full of obsolete trivia. But see, my trivia ran the damn building. They forgot I was still the lessee, the legal tenant. And now they were squatters with espresso machines. I picked up my phone and started scrolling. Insurance policy still in my name. HVAC contract renewed last year under my direct email. Cleaning services only showed up because I Venmo'd the manager once a month under Building Freshness Fund. Utilities routed through a business account I opened with the city in 2005. Back when the electricity went out every time someone used the microwave and the printer simultaneously, everything that mattered still flowed through me. I could alert them. I could send an email, forward the lease terms with a subject line like, "Hey, forgot something." That's not what they would have done if the roles were switched. No. If the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be halfway through replacing me with a younger model who doesn't know how to reset the circuit panel without Googling it. So, I closed the lease folder. I poured another Dr. Pepper. And I decided for the first time in 2 decades to shut the hell up. Let them feel the silence. Let them find the edge when they walk off it. Let the espresso machine be their first hint because now they were trespassing. And I had the paperwork to prove it. I wore my church shoes to the meeting with the property manager, not because I needed to look fancy, but because they made a louder noise when I walked across marble floors. I wanted the world to hear me coming. Thomas, the property manager, looked up from his monitor when I walked into his office on the 4th floor. He was the kind of man who always smelled like copper toner and had 17 different highlighters on his desk for no goddamn reason. "Miranda," he said, surprised. "Didn't think I'd see you back here." I smiled. "Let's just say I'm here in a legacy capacity." He tilted his head like a confused golden retriever. I sat down, pulled out my folder, and handed him the lease packet. Original amendments, all still pristine. Right down to the one sticky note where the founder doodled a flying burrito during our 2009 renewal meeting. "I want to confirm something," I said. "There was no written renewal request submitted by July 1st. Correct?" He blinked, started clicking away at his keyboard like it owed him money. No, not from the company. Nothing logged in the system. I assumed they were going month to month while they worked out a new deal. We hadn't heard anything official. I nodded, calm as a tombstone. Good. That tracks because under Clause 9b, it converts to month-to-month tenancy if no notice is received. Thomas leaned back. His chair creaked like an old knee. Technically, yeah, that's correct. I pulled another paper from my bag, slow and deliberate. It was crisp, thick stock, gold embossed letterhead. I'd like to formally notify you of a lease termination. Effective in 30 days. His eyebrows shot up so high I thought they'd file for workers' comp. Wait, you're terminating it? Yep. As the lessee of record, they missed the renewal window and I've already lined up a replacement tenant. He swallowed hard. Do they know they will? The new tenant was a wellness startup called Bloom Pulse. All green juice and artisanal air purifiers. Young, loaded with investor money, and desperate for downtown square footage to install their Himalayan salt wall and kombucha taps. I met the founder at a farmer's market last year while buying beets. She offered 3 times what the current lease was worth. Thomas ran a hand through his thinning hair. This is going to be messy. Messy, I said, standing, was what they gave me after 2 decades of loyalty. I left before he could ask more questions. Back home, I opened a fresh legal document on my laptop and filled in the blanks. Plaintiff, Miranda Jean Hawkins. Defendant, current occupant, Suite 201 to 221. Reason for eviction, failure to renew lease, material breach, and subletting without notification. I'd found out they rented a back office to some crypto consultant without ever telling me. Another little oversight. I filed it online through the county portal, paid extra to expedite. The confirmation email hit my inbox with a delightful ding that made me feel younger than Botox ever could. Then, like clockwork, HR emailed me. Subject: request confirmation of returned property. Dear Miranda, hope you're doing well. We're reaching out to confirm you've returned all company property, including documentation, keys, badges, and other physical or digital assets belonging to company name. Please respond to confirm completion. Best, Haley. I didn't hesitate. I clicked reply all because I knew Haley liked to CC half the damn company to make herself look busy. My response: yes, including the ones you forgot I had. I hit send and leaned back in my chair. The building meant something to me once. I'd seen it grow from drywall and Ethernet spaghetti into something shiny and polished. I'd eaten more lunches at that front desk than in my own kitchen. Laughed with interns. Cried when I lost my dog and someone left me flowers on the break room table. But love has limits, and mine ran out 2 days after they slid that folder across the table. I wasn't just getting even. I was reclaiming everything. 2 mornings later, I stood in my sunroom watering my peace lily with one hand and holding the certified letter in the other. Heavy envelope, real ink signature, stamped with county court markings and everything. Plaintiff, Miranda Jean Hawkins. Defendant, company name, care of occupant Suite 201 to 221. Subject, notice of termination and demand to vacate premises. My name in bold right at the top. It felt surreal, like seeing your own obituary while sipping coffee, except instead of death, it was resurrection. A resurrection in sweatpants and orthopedic slippers, but still. Across town, the same envelope landed in reception around 9:13 a.m. The property manager sent it priority mail and emailed a copy just to be sure. Standard procedure. 30-day notice. Tenant has failed to renew. New occupancy scheduled. Kindly vacate or respond through legal channels. Problem was, the receptionist that day was a temp. Name tag said, Amber, in pink glitter pen. Probably thought it was spam. She chucked it in the recycling bin between a box of expired Kind bars and a broken laminator. Meanwhile, upstairs in the executive lounge, the leadership team was busy spit-shining their egos. IPO talks. Branding refreshes. One of them was giving a presentation about disrupting verticals, whatever the hell that meant. I'd seen the slide deck on LinkedIn later. It had a stock photo of a woman laughing while eating salad and pointing at a whiteboard. Groundbreaking stuff. They were too busy swimming in their own ambition soup to notice the tide pulling out. I sat on my couch rereading the notice, not because I doubted the legality. Lenny made sure it was airtight. I just needed to feel it. The weight. The consequence. This wasn't just some HR slap fight anymore. This was a time bomb wrapped in bureaucracy and tied with a red tape bow. And I'd lit the fuse. There was a moment, maybe 20 seconds, where guilt tried to wiggle its way in. That building had been my second home. I'd bandaged its cracks, soothed its moans, kept it warm and humming. I'd seen weddings announced in that office. Babies born, affairs bloom and implode with equal force. It meant something once, but now it was just a box full of people who thought legacy meant slow. So I folded the notice back into the envelope and slid it into my filing cabinet right behind my divorce papers and 2 unpaid parking tickets I was saving for sport. That's when my phone buzzed. Dan, facilities guy. Hey, you okay? Something's weird around here. Front desk got a court notice, but nobody's talking. Place feels off. Dan was one of the good ones. Quiet guy. Knew how to replace a fluorescent ballast without whining about it. Once helped me chase a possum out of the break room ceiling tiles. I almost replied with, "I'm fine." That felt dishonest. So I sent back, "I'm more than okay, Dan. I'm just finally being seen." He didn't reply right away, probably still digesting whatever gossip was brewing. I imagined the confusion. The execs assuming the letter was a mistake or a prank. Or maybe they'd blame a vendor. They were good at that, outsourcing accountability like it was janitorial service. But the fuse was burning, and I'd already lined up the matchbox, gasoline, and fire extinguisher just far enough away that they'd never reach it in time. The conference room at Lenny's firm smelled like burnt coffee and laminated ambition. Fake plants in every corner. One of those motivational posters that says, "Success," over a picture of a mountain climber about to die. Lenny sat across from me in a blue pinstriped suit that made him look like a nervous ventriloquist dummy. But his hands were steady as he slid the final lease transfer document across the table. "All you got to do is sign right there under outgoing lessee, and again on page 4 under authorizing party." He hesitated, pen in hand. "You still good with this?" I looked down at the paper. Crisp, clinical, cold as Haley's smile. Incoming tenant, Bloom Pulse Incorporated, effective date, August 31st, 12 p.m. sharper terms. $12,800 per month triple net, 5-year contract. Signature line, Miranda Jean Hawkins. I picked up the pen. "No second thoughts?" Lenny asked. "Only that I didn't do this sooner." The pen scraped across the page like a guillotine blade, and just like that, 21 years of institutional memory transferred to a kombucha empire with a Pinterest mood board. Lenny sighed. "I'll submit this to the property manager this afternoon. Judge already approved the eviction. You'll get notice of posting within 48 hours. I raised an eyebrow. "They'll get 48 hours to vacate?" He nodded. From the moment the notice hits the door, no appeal, no wiggle room. They missed the renewal window, sublet illegally, and didn't respond to termination paperwork. You handed them the rope. They built the gallows. I left the office with a copy of the signed documents tucked neatly in a manila folder labeled, "Closure." Not revenge, not get even, just closure, because that's what this was now. A clean, surgical ending to 2 decades of being invisible while holding up the ceiling. Later that evening, I got in my car and drove downtown. The city looked different at night, shinier, colder, like everything had been dipped in chrome and regret. I parked across the street from the building and killed the engine. Left the headlights off, just watched. The lights were still on in the executive suites, probably burning through a few $1,000 in overtime pay and catered sushi. Haley was probably prepping another internal culture slideshow. The CEO was probably somewhere in the corner practicing his investor pitch in the mirror with a scotch in one hand and a lie in the other. I sipped my gas station coffee and rolled down the window. The building stood there, clueless, silent, lit up like Christmas Eve, and just as blind to what was coming. That same building that once felt like mine, now a stranger. I looked up at Suite 221, the corner office, my old desk, now occupied by some project manager who thinks HVAC stands for happy vibes and coffee. I smiled, not out of malice, Not even joy. It was the smile of a woman watching a freight train inch toward a man who's too busy texting to hear it coming. They had no idea that tomorrow morning, a county marshal would be taping a fluorescent orange notice to their glass doors. That in 48 hours, every whiteboard brainstorm, every yoga ball chair, every beanbag in the innovation zone would be loaded into a moving truck with Bloom Pulse waiting behind them, cash in hand and incense ready. I sat there until the lights started to flicker off. Then I drove home. Window down. Wind in my hair. Manila folder on the passenger seat. And a kind of peace I hadn't felt since 2003. Right around the time I learned that gratitude has an expiration date. But leverage stays fresh forever. At exactly 8:03 a.m., Haley strolled into the building like a smug Macy's mannequin. Almond milk latte in hand. Beige pumps clicking like an applause track only she could hear. She paused by the front desk and gave the temp receptionist a chipper, casted smile. "Any messages?" she chirped. Amber blinked. "Oh yeah, something weird on the CEO's door." Haley rolled her eyes. Probably assumed it was another passive-aggressive sticky note from IT. Last week, they taped a meme of Danny DeVito under the thermostat after someone cranked it to 82 degrees. By 8:07, she was on the second floor. By 8:08, she was standing in front of the CEO's office with her jaw unhinged like a python at a barbecue. Fluorescent orange eviction notice, laminated, zip-tied to the handle, signed, sealed, and served. Notice to vacate property in breach of lease. 48 hours. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking like she just overdosed on oat milk. Dialed building security. Tried to peel the notice off the glass, but it held fast like judgment. By 8:30, the CEO arrived unshaven, Bluetooth in one ear. Probably thought he was walking into another, crush the quarter morning. Instead, he found Haley pacing, the entire marketing team rubbernecking, and a legal document zip-tied to his door like a game over screen. He yanked it, read it, blinked once, then again. By 9:02, his phone rang. It was Thomas, the property manager. "Mr. Altman," Thomas said, calm and corporate. "This is to confirm enforcement of lease termination. We were notified via certified mail and email over 2 weeks ago. We received no response. We assumed your silence was intentional." Intentional. Altman barked. Of course. Who would ignore a 30-day legal notice unless they meant to? Thomas said. The smirk in his voice was audible. By 9:10, panic set in. Execs started trickling into the office one by one, each reacting to the neon paper like it was a live grenade. HR pulled together an emergency meeting in the glass conference room where transparency was more literal than metaphorical. They closed the blinds halfway, then realized too late that they didn't reach the bottom of the glass. The whole floor watched their meltdown like it was reality TV. By 10:15, someone finally figured out who the plaintiff was. Haley opened her laptop, pulled up the scanned court documents attached to the emailed copy they'd ignored. There it was, plain as day. Plaintiff, Miranda Jean Hawkins. "Wait. Miranda," she whispered. Dan from facilities, bless him, nodded solemnly in the break room. "Told you something was weird." Meanwhile, I was home in my sunroom. Tea steeping. Cat on my lap. Phone buzzing like a beehive. Lenny texted first. "It's done. They called building security. Marshall's coming tomorrow. You're a legend." Then Dan, "They look like ants in a microwave. Proud of you." Then the local biz blog posted a headline. Downtown tech firm evicted amid lease dispute. Insider hints at mismanagement meltdown. The article didn't name me directly, but the comment section filled in the blanks. Someone uploaded a grainy photo of the eviction notice. Another chimed in. "Wasn't their office manager there like 20 years? Someone else replied, "Bet she knew where all the bodies were buried." I sipped my tea. They had been buried under thankless tasks and invisible work for 2 decades. Nobody gave me flowers on admin day. Nobody noticed when I stayed until 9 p.m. rebooting the router with a ballpoint pen. But they were noticing now. They just didn't know this wasn't even the final act. Not yet. The call came in at 7:42 p.m. I was midway through organizing my spice rack, alphabetical, of course. A woman needs order somewhere in this godless world, and the screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen since the day he forgot mine at the Christmas party. Altman. Nathan, CEO. I let it ring twice. 3 times. Picked up on the 4th. Miranda speaking. He didn't waste time. What the hell is going on? You can't do this, he roared, voice cracking like a teenager caught with a vape pen. I put him on speaker, poured myself a glass of wine, and leaned against the counter like I was settling in for my favorite sitcom. Because really, I absolutely can, I said, calm as fresh snow. And I did. Read your lease. You're evicting an entire company. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The board's freaking out. We've got press circling like vultures. Our investors. I cut him off with a sigh. Nathan, let me stop you right there. You fired the person who held the keys. All of them. Building, legal, operational memory. You didn't even ask who signed the lease. We assumed it was. That's the problem, I said. You assumed. About everything. About me, about the company, about what I was worth. There was silence on the other end, then a wheezing breath. Probably his blood pressure climbing Mount Stupid. You blindsided us, he said, trying to pivot into the role of victim. No, I corrected. I responded to being blindsided. Difference is, I came prepared. I opened my email, drafted a new message to CEO at company, and CC'd legal at, Haley at HR at, and, just for spice, facilities at. Dan deserved the show. Subject line. Company property, as requested. Body. Attached is the complete original lease agreement, including all amendments, waiver clauses, and the subletting violations you failed to disclose. As you requested confirmation that I returned all company documents, consider this fulfillment of that request. Attachment. Lease_termination_jh_sign.pdf. I hit send while Altman was still breathing heavily into the receiver. This doesn't end well for you, he finally snarled. The board is going to. Oh, they'll do what they always do, I said, swirling my wine. Protect themselves, maybe toss you to the wolves if they're hungry enough. But they won't call me because I have the paperwork and Bloompulse has already wired the first 2 months' rent. That shut him up. I continued, and just to clarify, I didn't sell the company out. I just stopped carrying it on my back. The line stayed quiet for a few beats, then disconnected. I exhaled, didn't smile, didn't smirk, just stood there, feeling the weight of years slide off my shoulders like old paint during a thunderstorm. The building's new tenants were scheduled to begin moving in the following Monday. Bloompulse had a welcome banner printed and everything. Your vibe starts here. Not exactly my aesthetic, but they paid on time and knew how to read a lease. Meanwhile, the old crew was scrambling to find a temporary space that wasn't a strip mall conference room or the CEO's overpriced condo with no working Wi-Fi. I raised my glass to the empty kitchen, to endings, to leverage, to being underestimated until it was too damn late. They wanted company property returned. I just gave it back with interest. By Friday morning, company was in full panic buy mode, throwing Hail Marys at every commercial landlord in a 10-mile radius. Rumor had it they even tried to bribe Thomas, the property manager, with concert tickets and promises of reputation management opportunities. One of the execs supposedly offered him a founding wellness partnership, whatever that horseshit means. Too little, too late. The lease with Bloompulse was already inked, notarized, and framed in their founder's new office. Suite 221. She was already picking out the wallpaper, something with eucalyptus leaves and affirmations. The tech company, meanwhile, was evicted like a frat house that forgot to pay rent for a semester. Monday morning hit like a piano dropped from the 10th floor. I sat on my porch with a mug of black coffee and an old portable radio playing classic rock while the chaos unfolded 4 blocks away. The sky was blue. The birds were singing. Down on 6th Street, the former darlings of downtown were wheeling out Herman Miller chairs and half-empty Keurig pods into a rented U-Haul with one missing taillight. Haley wore sunglasses the size of her ego and barked into her phone like she was negotiating peace in the Middle East. Someone had taped a piece of printer paper to the truck, reading, "Strategic relocation." Nice try. A crowd gathered. People filmed. Then came the chair. Altman, tan suit, sweat stains, red-faced, lost it completely. A folding chair flew from his hands and smacked the side of the U-Haul with a hollow clang that echoed off the buildings like a sad cymbal. Someone posted the video with the caption, "When your office karma hits back harder than your IPO plans." 3 hours later, it hit the front page of TechSlam, then Fail Whale, and finally Cringebay. The comments were brutal. Did they evict him or unplug his ego? Chair toss equals leadership under pressure. Can someone tell him throwing furniture won't change zoning laws? Back at home, I got a knock on the door. It was a courier holding a basket wrapped in cellophane, organic fruit, lavender tea, a tiny jar of turmeric gummies. On top, a note in loopy handwriting. "Miranda, thanks for the space and the story. We'll take good care of it. The Bloom Pulse team." I laughed, a real one, deep from the belly. First time in a long while. I placed the basket on the kitchen counter, poured myself a glass of sangria, and walked to the hallway. There, on the wall next to my family photos and my framed first paycheck from 1981, hung a small brass hook. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the one thing I'd saved. No plaque, no fanfare, just metal and memory. The original office key. I hung it like a trophy. Not because it unlocked anything now, but because once it opened everything, and now it closed the chapter exactly how I wanted. Quietly, legally, permanently. Appreciate you sticking around. You legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old manager spill their coffee in fear.